All right, before we keep going through chapter 3 this semester, remember we ended last semester with section 3.1 and 3.2, and that's all we got through. So we're going to keep going through chapter 3, but we have to go back a little bit and do a section from the appendix that you're going to need as we move forward through chapter 3. So our learning target for this lesson is that you should be able to divide polynomials using long division. So go ahead and please write down that learning target. We practiced long division, regular long division that you learned in like elementary school in class on Monday. So now we're going to apply that to a college algebra level type problem where we're going to divide polynomials. So just a quick refresher on what we did on Monday. You do not have to write this down if you don't want to. So I'm going to go through it quickly. So we divide, when we take 9,427 divided by 6. A couple of things we didn't talk about that you're going to need to know is a few vocabulary words. The number that is being divided up is called the dividend. The number that we are dividing by is called the divisor. And then whatever you get as your answer is called the quotient. So I know you guys have heard the word quotient before, the answer to a division problem, but you also need to know that the number we're dividing up is the dividend and the number we're dividing by is the divisor. So the divisor always goes on the outside of the long division problem. So we're dividing by 6, so that goes on the outside, and the dividend goes on the inside. So remember, we always look at that first number. How many times does 6 go into 9? Only once. So we know if 6 goes into 9 one time, that's 6. Subtract those, and you have a remainder of 3. So 6 goes into 9 once, and with the remainder of 3. Bring down that 4. 6 goes into 34 5 times. So that would be 30. We subtract those and get a remainder of 4. Okay. Bring down your next number, that 2. 6 goes into 42 7 times. So 6 times 7 is 42. We subtract those and get a remainder of 0. And last, we bring down our 7. 6 goes into 7 one time. 6 times 7 is 6. Subtract those and get a remainder of 1. I don't have any other numbers to bring down, so my 1, that's going to be my remainder. So the way that I want you to write your quotient, so our quotient is 1,571 with a remainder of 1 out of the 6 we were dividing by. So that would be 1,571 and 1/6. So you take your quotient, 1,571, whatever you got on that top there, the remainder over the original divisor. Okay. So the answer you get on the top plus the remainder over the original divisor. All right. So we're going to apply that same sort of thing to our polynomials. So it's almost exactly the same process. So here we have our dividend and our divisor. So we're going to set that up just like we did in our elementary school long division. So the divisor goes on the outside. And the dividend goes underneath. I guess in elementary school they call that a house. So we're going to take the same process. I look at first just my x. And I want to know, okay, how many times does that go into 6x cubed? In other words, what do I have to multiply x by to get 6x cubed? I need to multiply x times 6x squared to get 6x cubed. Okay. So take your x times that 6x squared and you get 6x cubed. Also, you need to then take the 2 times the 6x squared, and you get 12x squared. So when you're trying to find that red number, that very first number, you only look at your x. Okay, so x times 6x squared gives me 6x cubed. Then when I'm finding the number here that I need to subtract, you need to make sure you multiply the x times the 6x squared and the 2 times the 6x squared. So I'm going to subtract all of that from my original polynomial. So 6x cubed minus 6x cubed. These two numbers should always cancel. Then I have 10x squared minus 12x squared, which is negative 2x squared. Okay. Just like in long division, we're going to bring down that next term. Okay. So now I'm looking at my negative 2x squared. What do you need to multiply x by to get 2x squared? Let's do a different color today. All right, so what do I need to multiply just this x by to get negative 2x squared? I would need to multiply it by negative 2x. So x times negative 2x is negative 2x squared. And then 2 times negative 2x is negative 4x. I'm going to subtract that whole thing. So negative 2x minus negative 2x, that cancels out. And x minus negative 4x, so minus and negative you're actually adding. So x minus negative 4x is 5x. Bring down your 8. All right. So now we have 5x. So I need to know, what do I need to multiply x by to get 5x? I'd have to multiply by 5. So plus 5 on the top. So x times 5 gives me 5x. And then I also need to take 2 times my 5 and get 10. So we're going to subtract that whole thing. So 5x minus 5x, that always cancels out. 8 minus 10 is negative 2. Since I have nothing else to bring down from the original, this is my remainder. So we write this, the quotient is going to be 6x squared minus 2x plus 5, and we had negative 2 left over the original quotient, or divisor, x plus 2. So just like in the basic problem that we did, we took that answer from the top and then the plus the remainder over the divisor. So here's our answer from the top plus the remainder over the original divisor. So that would be the answer that we are looking for. All right, let's keep going and do another one. Okay, so this is just one of those things that you just have to practice with. So we have our dividend and our divisor. Now you'll notice our divisor has 2x squared. There's no x term and then just a 1. So what I'm going to do as a way to kind of keep track to help you so that we don't get confused when we're trying to divide things in, is if there's ever a missing term, then add it in with a 0. So we have 2x squared plus 0x plus 1. Okay. Do the same thing with the dividend. In this case, it goes x cubed, x squared, x, and then 1, and then 5, so we don't have any missing terms. In there. All right, great. So starting out with our very first one, just looking at this 2x squared, just looking at the first term of the divisor and the first term of the dividend. What would I need to multiply the first term of the divisor by to get the first term of the dividend? So I need to multiply 2x squared times 3x to get 6x cubed. Okay. So now we need to take that 3x that I just put up there and multiply it by the entire divisor. So 3x times 2x squared is 6x cubed. Oops. 3x times 0x is 0x squared. Oops. And 3x times 1 is going to be 3x. So I take that entire thing and subtract it from the original dividend. So 6x cubed minus 6x cubed, that always cancels out. 10x squared minus 0x squared is 10x squared. 3x minus 3x is 0x. Bring down your 5. That's our next, always bringing down the next term. All right, so again, just looking at the first term of this new dividend and the first term of our divisor, what would I need to multiply the first term of our divisor by to get this 10x squared? So 2x squared would need to be multiplied by 5 to get 10x squared. All right, so now we need to take that 5 that we just put up here at the top, take that 5 and multiply it by the entire divisor. So 5 times 2x squared is 10x squared. 5 times 0x is 0x. And 5 times 1 is 5. We subtract that entire thing. Make sure you're distributing that negative to all three of those terms. So 10x squared minus 10x squared cancels out. 0x minus 0x, that also cancels out. And 5 minus 5, so my remainder is 0. So my quotient is just 3x plus 5. No remainder. All right, we're going to do one last one together. So again, we have our dividend divided by our divisor. That divisor goes on the outside. And in this case, so we have x to the 5th, and then it skips to x to the 3rd. So I'm going to put in that x to the 4th term with a 0 so that I have all of my terms in between. And I have 5x cubed, skips over x squared, so I'm going to plug in a 0x squared there. Also a 0x minus 10. So fill in those missing terms with zeros so that it's really easy to keep track of as you're dividing. All right, so just looking at the first term of our divisor and the first term of our dividend, I would need to multiply x times x to the 4th to get x to the 5th. Now that I have that x to the 4th, I need to take that x to the 4th and multiply it by my entire divisor. So x to the 4th times x is x to the 5th. X to the 4th times 1 is x to the 4th. Subtract that whole thing, distributing that negative. So x to the 5th minus x to the 5th cancels out. That first one should always cancel out. 0x to the 4th minus x to the 4th is negative x to the 4th. Bring down your next term. Okay. So now again, looking at that first term of the new dividend with just the first term of the divisor, I would need to multiply this x times negative x cubed to get x to the 4th. So once I have that negative x cubed needs to be multiplied by my entire divisor. So negative x cubed times x is negative x to the fourth. Negative x cubed times 1 is negative x cubed. Subtract that, distributing the negative all the way through. Negative x to the fourth minus negative x to the fourth cancels out. Negative x cubed minus negative x cubed, 5x cubed minus negative x cubed is 6x cubed. Bring down your next term. All right, looking at the first term of my new dividend with the first term of my divisor, I would need to multiply x times 6x squared to get 6x cubed. Once you've figured that out, take that 6x squared, multiply it by the entire divisor. 6x squared times x is 6x cubed. 6x squared times 1 is 6x squared. Subtract. Six x cubed minus 6x cubed cancels out. 0x squared minus 6x squared is negative 6x squared. Bring down your next term. So keep going with this process. What would I need to multiply x by to get negative 6x squared? So I need to multiply x times negative 6x to get negative 6x squared. Take that negative 6x, multiply it by my entire divisor. Negative 6x squared negative 6x times 1 is negative 6x. Subtract. First term cancels out, and 0x minus negative 6x is positive 6x. Bringing down our last term. All right, so first term, x needs to be multiplied by 6 to get the 6x that we have down here. Running out of room a little bit, so let me move to this side. All right, so we have 6x minus 10. So now take your 6 that you just found, multiply it by your entire divisor. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 1 is 6. Subtract that. And you get negative 16. There's no other terms to bring down, so that's our remainder. So your quotient is going to be x to the fourth minus x cubed plus 6x squared minus 6x plus 6 plus negative 16 over x plus 1. All right, so keep in mind this skill of dividing polynomials, it's very similar to regular division. We're practicing this skill so we can use it later in more in-depth problems in the sections coming up. But first we just need to make sure we have the skill mastered. So what I want you to do is go to www.interactmath.com. Okay, find our book. The section I want you to work in is chapter 14, which is the appendix section. Okay. Section 4, exercises 9, 11, 13, and 15. You're required to do at least 2. Do more than that, then if you feel like you need more practice, Now, when I say at least 2, it has to be at least 2 correctly. So if you do them and Interact Math tells you you get them wrong, then you need to try it again. So at least 2 done perfectly. If you need more practice, do more than that. And we will review and practice a little more next time in class.